If a woman has ever said something that left you confused, insecure, or like you suddenly had to prove yourself, it probably wasn't random. It was a test. I'm your host, and in this episode, I'm going to break down why some women show a visible outline in tight clothing, why it's almost never just fashion, and what's really being measured in the men who react to it. Not because women are evil, not because they wake up plotting how to ruin your day, but because attention, status, and boundaries are constantly being negotiated in public, whether you understand the game or not. And here's what matters. Most men fail this dynamic without realizing it. They respond from insecurity, from craving validation, from fear of losing control of the moment. And right there, right in that reaction, they hand over their power. So listen closely, because by the end of this episode, you'll know exactly how to carry yourself when you're exposed to that kind of trigger, without resentment, without weakness, and without becoming the guy who gets played by his own impulses. Before we get into the reasons, you need the context. Because if you don't understand the why, you'll misunderstand everything else. This isn't just about leggings or tight dresses. It's about signaling. It's about social leverage. It's about how humans test each other, constantly, without paperwork, without announcements, without permission. Men test too. Women test too. We all do it. The difference is that women often use social dynamics and attention as the testing ground, while men often think everything is direct and literal. That's why so many guys get caught off guard. They assume the world is saying exactly what it means, and meanwhile, the world is measuring how you move. Because it's easy to look confident when nothing challenges you. It's easy to be cool when the room is neutral. Any man can do that. The real question is what happens when your biology gets pinged? What happens when your eyes notice something before your brain has a chance to filter it? What happens when your ego flares up, when you feel pulled, when you feel tempted, when you feel annoyed, when you feel judged for looking, or when you feel like you're being baited? That's where your character shows up. That's where your discipline shows up. That's where your status shows up. And women, especially socially intelligent women, notice it immediately. And no, the goal isn't to shame women for wearing what they want. The goal is to understand the dynamic so you stop being predictable. Because the man who is predictable is controllable. And the man who is controllable is never truly respected. Now let's get into the reasons. The first reason is the simplest and the most common: reaction testing. Some women, again, not all, dress in a way that amplifies their sexual signal because it produces clean, fast information about the men around them. This isn't always conscious and calculating like a villain in a movie. Sometimes it's instinctive. Sometimes it's playful. Sometimes it's validation seeking. Sometimes it's, I like how I look. But the effect is the same. It creates a moment where men reveal themselves. The reveal isn't, did you look? Every heterosexual man will notice. The reveal is what you do next. Do you stare like you've been hypnotized, forgetting where you are? Do you lose your composure and start orbiting? Do you get loud and performative, trying to dominate the space with jokes and forced confidence? Do you become awkward and apologetic, like you're guilty for having eyes? Do you get irritated and moralistic, trying to punish her for triggering you? Or do you remain steady, eyes up, posture calm, energy stable, like a man who has been here before and doesn't fall apart over a stimulus? That difference is everything. A woman who understands social dynamics can place herself in environments where many men pass by: gyms, cafes, nightlife, even certain workplaces. And without speaking, she can learn who is disciplined, who is thirsty, who is nervous, who is entitled, who is respectful, who is potentially unsafe, and who is actually grounded. Men hate hearing this because they want to believe they're invisible observers. But you're not invisible. Your body language talks, your eyes talk, your pace talks, your facial expression talks. And the more you try to hide it in a clumsy way, the louder you become. So if you're a man listening, here's the first core lesson. The test isn't your attraction. The test is your self-control. Attraction is human. Lack of control is a confession. The second reason is identity and freedom. For some women, visible sexuality is a statement. There are women who wear body-emphasizing clothing because they refuse to shrink. They're not dressing for men. They're dressing for themselves, for confidence, for presence, for the feeling of taking up space. And in a world that has historically told women to be smaller, quieter, more covered, more careful, some women swing the other way. They go visible on purpose. That doesn't automatically make it good or bad. It makes it a choice with consequences. And this is where men get confused. They think that if an outfit creates sexual attention, it must have been selected to attract men. Sometimes yes, often no. Sometimes it's about self-expression. Sometimes it's about rebellion. Sometimes it's about comfort. Sometimes it's about trend. Sometimes it's about competition. Sometimes it's about dominance. But if you reduce it to, she's doing it for me, you reveal your own self-importance. And that is not masculine. That's needy. Here's the mature angle. You can respect her freedom and still understand the effect. Those two things can coexist. You don't have to become bitter to become aware. The third reason is attention economics. Validation is addictive. Let's be blunt. Being noticed feels good, for men and women. But many women have learned, through experience and social conditioning, that their fastest route to attention is visual. And in a world where attention is currency, the body becomes a wallet you can open in public. A glance is feedback. A double take is confirmation. A shift in male behavior is proof of influence. That's intoxicating. And if a woman has an insecurity underneath, if she doubts her worth, if she feels invisible, if she feels powerless in other areas, attention can become the drug that keeps her afloat. But here's the hard truth. Rented confidence expires. If your sense of power depends on strangers reacting, you'll need bigger and bigger reactions over time to feel the same effect. That turns confidence into dependence. Now let me flip that back to the listener, because this is where men regain their power. Your attention is not free. Your attention is not harmless. Your attention is fuel. The more you throw it around like you can't control it, the more you train the world to keep feeding you stimuli. If you want to be high status, you stop acting like a starving man in a buffet. The fourth reason is technical. Modern clothing is engineered to sculpt and emphasize. This part matters because it explains why sometimes the effect happens even when the intention isn't dramatic. Modern leggings, shapewear, contour seams, compression fabrics, these are designed to shape the body. They lift, they define, they tighten, they create visual lines, they accentuate outlines. So yes, sometimes the outline is not a deliberate, look at me. Sometimes it's the clothing doing exactly what it was manufactured to do. The fashion industry understands biology. It sells confidence by selling shape. But here's what doesn't change. Regardless of intention, the signal is still received. A man's brain doesn't pause to ask for a philosophy statement before it notices curves. It notices first, interprets second. That's why discipline matters more than opinions. The fifth reason is plausible deniability. Signaling without owning the consequences. Some women enjoy the benefits of sexual signaling, attention, influence, softness, social leverage, while insisting it's purely accidental, purely innocent, purely your problem. And men either fall into guilt or anger. Both are traps. Because guilt makes you submissive and apologetic. Anger makes you reactive and punishable. Neither is power. Here's the correct frame. If someone chooses a high-impact signal, they don't get to control every reaction in the room. But you also don't get to act entitled or disrespectful. The mature move is to hold two truths at once. People can dress how they want, and you can manage your own behavior like a man. Your job is not to police. Your job is not to worship. Your job is to regulate. The sixth reason is the one most men miss completely: female competition. A lot of the time, the real audience isn't men, it's other women. In many environments, gyms, social groups, nightlife, even certain workplaces, appearance is a status weapon. When a woman wears something that displays her body strongly, she may not be performing for men. She may be asserting rank in a social hierarchy where other women are the true judges. And men become the measuring device, not the prize, the proof. If men look, that becomes social evidence. I can pull focus. That can create tension, coldness, hostility, whispering, subtle exclusion. And that's why you'll sometimes see a woman dressed provocatively receiving more negative energy from women than from men. Because the competition isn't always romantic, it's hierarchical. Once you see that, you stop taking everything personally. You stop assuming you're the center of the story. You become an observer of the system instead of a victim inside it. Now let's bring it home, because this is where most content fails. It explains the dynamic, but it doesn't upgrade the listener. So here's your practical takeaway. If you're a man, the goal isn't to become numb. The goal is to become unshakable. You see the stimulus, you register it without drama, and you return to your purpose. You don't stare, you don't flinch, you don't moralize, you don't perform guilt, you don't negotiate with your impulses in public. You lead yourself first. And if you're a woman listening, the goal isn't to shrink. The goal is to be honest about outcomes. Dress how you want, but understand what you are signaling, what you are rewarding, what you are inviting, and what you are competing with. Real dominance isn't pretending you have no effect. Real dominance is knowing you have effect and being mature enough to handle it. Now let's recap the 6 reasons in one clean chain. Reaction testing, freedom signaling, validation seeking, engineered clothing effects, plausible deniability, and female competition. The principle behind all of it is simple. Public life is a constant negotiation of attention and status, and the person who controls their attention controls their status. So don't take it personally. Don't get angry. Don't get weak. Don't get desperate. See it for what it is, a moment where you either demonstrate control or you expose your lack of it. If this episode helped you see the game more clearly, subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. And tell me in the comments, have you ever felt tested by a woman's presence or by the way she dressed? And what did you do in that moment? In the next episode, I'll break down the signals that a woman is losing respect, not the obvious ones, the subtle ones, and what to do before it becomes unrecoverable. I'm your host, and this is the show where we decode the social dynamics most people pretend they don't see. See you in the next episode.